Hey everybody, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be looking at this Nintendo Switch which has been sent in, and this has been sent in because apparently it's been to another repair shop and they messed it up after a mod install went wrong. So apparently it's not reading SD cards, but the note on this said that the shop that it went to had messed it up and this is how it got sent back. There's no screws in the back, and that's as far as I've actually gone in terms of looking at it. So, yeah, not sure what's happened to the screws, but that's not really that big of a deal. It looks like there's no screws at all with this. But, oh dear, well, that is pretty rough. So, what I'm seeing here, straight off the bat, is a lot of damage around the SD card connector. So the SD card module is meant to connect here, and that looks like it's been absolutely destroyed. I'm not even going to attempt to power this on, to be honest. It's really not worth risking it. I don't know what's shorted out and what's not, so I'm not going to bother with any of that. I'm just going to get this straight out of the housing and have a look under the microscope, and hopefully I'm not wasting my time on this. It doesn't look great. Even the LCD is not connected up properly. Wow. Yeah, this has been completely destroyed. I wonder what the actual board looks like under the microscope. So if you're new to the channel, my name's Hakko, I'm an electronics technician, and I mainly work on games consoles, but sometimes I do other stuff too. I said do. So if you do want to see that sort of stuff, be sure to subscribe, check it, turn on the bell notifications and all of that stuff. And also, if you want to support me, you can do so on Patreon. And wow, yeah, this might be. Yeah, I don't know if I want to repair this at all. This has been absolutely destroyed. I'm struggling to even get the ribbons out of this. Yeah, you can support me on Patreon, and I'm also currently doing a fundraiser to build a new workshop. And if you want to check that out, I'll leave some details in the top pinned comment for that as well. I do really appreciate all of the support. You probably don't give a damn about what I've got to say, but just hear me out for a minute, alright? We all know that those sweaty little douchebags with cheesy fingers, living in the mom's basement, drinking Red Bull and simping over TikTok losers are gonna break the console. And you and I both know that you're too cheap to buy off eBay, you're too impatient to wait for AliExpress, and you're just about smart enough to avoid Amazon completely. You can admit it, because I'm exactly the same. That's why I started my online store, consolefix.shop. I'll sell every part you'll need to fix the Xbox One, Series S, Series X, PS4, PS5 and Nintendo Switch consoles. So why not give me the money instead of some random dude on eBay? At least if I have it, you know it's not going to waste on some stupid thing like promoted eBay listings or food for the kids or something. If you give me your money instead, I promise I'll use it on useful things, like buying views on TikTok. So before you decide to go to one of the more popular sites and line the pockets of some fat cat loser, take a look at my online store. Check out the link in the video description or the top pinned comment and get 10% off any order over £25 during checkout. Alright, now you can go back to watching this douchebag on YouTube trying to fix something.
You can't say stuff like that in an advert, dude.
You're not my dad, dude. Don't tell me what to do.
That's what you think, Phil.
Right, and as you can see, that has been pretty destroyed. I'm not even going to worry about the LCD right now. That's not really a concern. Not the LCD, sorry. The ribbons. You know, well, we've got the backlight ribbon, the Joy-Con ribbon, but we've also got these. So we've got the fan connector and the fan ribbon and the power button ribbon as well. That's pretty easy to change. You know, all of that is pretty easy to change. You know, it comes from here where the buttons are, and it goes down here, across here, underneath the fan, and goes to there. So if I can't clean that up properly, that's not too big of a deal. Same with this one. The fan is pretty easy to change, but I'd probably be able to clean those up anyway. This one, on the other hand, if that's wamboozled, which, well, it doesn't look great, that's going to be a bit of an issue, because that would mean a new screen. The Joy-Con rail, that's not too bad. You know, that's pretty easy to change as well. But let's have a look at the board first, under the microscope, where I can actually see it myself. Right, okay, so That does not look good at all, does it? Let's be honest. That is a mess. So we're going to have to clean all of that up first. So I'll take the NAND off. I need to look underneath there. So basically this is where the storage is, and then underneath that there's a bunch of components. There's a Wi-Fi module, or rather a Wi-Fi chip, or Wi-Fi / Bluetooth rather, amongst a few other things, you know, like a few capacitors, resistors, that sort of stuff. It's like a little ecosystem, and that does not look good, but it could all just be superficial. So what I'm going to do is just heat this up, because heating it up makes it a lot easier to actually clean up. It might be a case where we need to replace the two connectors, you know, this. In fact, I think it might be best to actually replace them, and the reason for that is because they're really difficult to clean. They are incredibly difficult to clean. So I'm going to heat this up, liquidise this, well, I assume it's flux. I certainly hope it's flux. But, yeah, let's liquidise that. And then just add some IPA. Give that a couple of seconds just to soak in. IPA stands for isopropyl alcohol. It's 99.9% pure. I think it might have been Vince. I'm not sure. It could have been my mate Vince that asked if isopropyl alcohol was conductive. I'm not sure if it was. If it wasn't, sorry Vince. But basically, to cut a long story short, someone asked if isopropyl alcohol was conductive last week on a video. And basically, it is conductive technically because it's got water content in it. But it depends on what kind of isopropyl alcohol you're using. So if you're using 99.9% pure isopropyl alcohol, that's 0.1% water content. The rest is pure alcohol, pure methane. I think it's methane. So basically, it is conductive, but not to a point where it's going to hurt motherboards for the most part. If you get, for example, 70% isopropyl alcohol, you know, then, you know, that's going to be a lot more conductive because it's 30% water content. So I would recommend using 99.9% to a minimum of, you know, 90% isopropyl on PCBs. That is already looking a million times better. So one thing you'll see here is we've got a bunch of components around this Max IC, and these components don't look great. You know, they're definitely oxidized. Whether it's worth changing them, I'm not sure. I think it probably is. And this is exactly the reason why I didn't power this on, because look at this. We've got a bunch of components here, a bunch of pads here which are all shorted together. So if I'd have powered that on, we'd have probably caused some irreparable damage, because there's no way that, you know, this is going to power on like this, and also there's too much solder on there for it to just burn itself out as well. So obviously that's a big issue. Those connectors, they actually might not need changing. Maybe a little bit more warming up and cleaning, and I might be able to get away with not changing those. But obviously I want to save as much money as I can for the customer. A little trick, because you might notice that the bottom connector, the Joy-Con connector, is basically a little bit melted. One little trick is if you keep the airflow moving. I'm at 440 degrees Celsius right now, but if you keep the airflow moving, you shouldn't melt the connector. I'm not going to say you won't, because you will eventually, but you shouldn't melt it straight away, you know, just heating it up and stuff. And I mean, that is pretty warm at the minute, and I want it warm because obviously I need to make sure that I'm giving it a really good clean. And I'm looking to clean this to a point where these connectors, when they're open, they're moving around freely. So for example, like this one here, the backlight connector, I want the same for this one. If I'm just brushing along, I want it moving along freely. I don't want it to have any kind of resistance on it, because that means there's still flux inside the connector. It does appear as though it's moving freely with just the bristles now, which is good. I don't think there's any damage to this Wi-Fi circuit or Wi-Fi and Bluetooth circuit. How's that looking? That's fine. And then we're going to do the same with this one as well. I'll just get that warmed up. And you see how that connector's not moving? The clasp on the connector. It is now, but not freely enough to the point where I want it, you know, where I'm comfortable with saying it's okay. Honestly, judging by how bad it looked, this is actually really straightforward so far. I'm probably going to regret saying that. But a lot of people just take a look at this inside the housing and say, nope. Okay, that's moving freely now, so... yeah, that's probably okay, to be honest. That fan connector is definitely all good to go. I want to make sure there's no flux inside here as well. So, you notice I'll keep coming back to that to clean it with the brush. Try and get the bristles right inside. Make sure there's no flux that's going to affect the connection on the NAND, because that will stop it booting. I'm also going to need to remove the CPU shield as well, but that's a job that can wait. Let's have a look at the back and see if there's any damage been done. I don't think so, honestly. There's a couple of areas where, you know, their corrosive flux has hit. So, for example, this cap here. But other than that, I mean, it looks okay. But I have got to visually inspect the rest of the board. I'll just go around and just give it a really good clean as I'm doing so. Light sensor looks okay, that's good, at least that's not been melted. The rest of it looks okay, honestly. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Connectors are moving freely now, good. Right, let's have a look at this shield. Okay, so we had a bit of IPA and flux mixed in on the CPU, so that's why I wanted to remove this shield and actually have a look underneath there, because obviously if we've got a mixture of different liquids and whatever on the CPU, then it's not going to be adequately cooled. And the problem with the switch in particular is, yes, you've got thermal paste directly on the CPU die, so just here. But the issue is there's a piece of copper tape above it. And if you ask me, that's just adding more layers to it unnecessarily. I mean, a lot of the time I see people removing the tape. I don't do it just because, you know, I don't want to really mess with the original design of it. And it does seem to adequately cool it. But the problem is when you add more things to it. So, for example, you know, bits of flux and IPA and whatever. I mean, the IPA would evaporate over time, but when you're adding stuff to it, you know, it's really not good for the overall design or the overall performance. I mean, that thermal paste really needed replacing anyway. It's pretty crusty under there. Doesn't have to be perfect, just get the majority of it off. I'm just basically bathing all of this in IPA while I'm, you know, working around it. I could ultrasonic this, but honestly, I don't think it's worth the time, because I've got to allow for drying time and stuff as well while I'm doing it, and I just don't think it's worth the time. I haven't even tested to see if this board's working. Okay, let's just give this a bit of a heat up. It's looking a million times better. One final bit of IPA. Alright, okay, I think that's good to go now. If you want to see just how bad this was, just take a look at the state of my desk. Yeah, absolutely disgusting. Alright, there we go. Yeah, so even on the overhead cam now, you know, you can see it's looking a million times better. Yeah, it's covered in IPA, but that's not really a problem. Yeah, I'm a lot happy with how that looks right now. So let's put some non-corrosive flux on here and let's start to sort out the mess, shall we? I don't want to put too much flux on because I don't want to end up having to get, you know, clean up again. It's fairly clean right now and I don't want to have to clean those connectors for a second time if I can help it. Although, let's face it, I probably will have to. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to. Never mind. Okay, there we go. That's those pads cleaned up. And I think, honestly, I don't trust the connections on that Max IC. You know, not on the actual chip itself. I'm not sure about that, but a VFlow will sort that out. But in terms of the components surrounding it, I really don't trust them. So I think I'm going to have to replace them. You know, they are very, very oxidized and very, very, very rough looking. So I think what I'll do is I'll replace the components around it. At the same time, what that will do is it'll reflow the chip itself. Because the problem is I've got to warranty this job if I'm going to actually try and fix it, right? So what I need to do is I need to make sure that nothing's going to fail in, you know, a month down the line. Yeah, just look at the condition of those joints. They're not great, are they? So I'm basically just going to do a swap. I'll take a donor board, I'll take all of the components from a donor board and replace them one by one. First of all, I'm just going to tin all of these joints. There we go. And then I've got a donor board here. Same model, HAC CPU 10. So it's the same components. And I'm going to just basically hot swap them all. Take them all from this board and put them onto this board. So I'm going to start with these smaller components because they're the ones I'll need the microscope for to be able to remove from the donor board. So the other ones I can just remove from the donor board without the microscope. I hate it when that happens. Alright, so usually when I can't make contact with the solder, what I'll do is I'll just drop my airflow right down to 1%, come in slowly, and there we go. So now I can release the tweezers from the component, bring my airflow back up, and there we go. Good. Excellent. So basically what happened is as I removed that component, it pushed up on the tweezers. And because it's so small, you've got no clearance for it to push up on the tweezers. So it wouldn't release on the tweezers and actually bond with the solder on the board. There we go. So now the rest of them I can just remove from the donor board without having to worry about the smaller components. Don't worry about the fact that the components are on a slant. Basically, what I'm going to be doing in a minute is adding some flux, and that'll pull everything into position. Okay, you ready for the magic to happen? Here we go. Three, two, one. Beautiful. Need a little bit of persuading. Gorgeous. That is looking pretty sweet to me. So next what I need to do is just remove a connector from a donor board. I'll just find a donor board that's got a good connector on it. There we go. That'll do. I remember this board. It's got an internal short. So what I'll do now is just heat up from underneath the board where my finger is, using the hot air with no nozzle, and then I'll be able to remove the connector from the board without damaging it. And then what I'll do is I'll do the exact same process but putting the connector onto the board I'm working on. So this right now is the donor board that I'm removing the connector from, and I want to remove it without damage. Well, that's the plan at least. Okay, there we go. While I'm here, I'm just going to remove that connector, and I'll just put a new connector on it for the Joy-Con ribbon as well, because they are pretty sensitive and that one's melted, so I may as well do it at the same time. It's not going to cost me anything really to do it, and also it's not really taking much time either. The backlight's not so bad, but in terms of the Joy-Con connector, I'd rather replace it. So there's the old one. So in terms of this connector, I always do it with the clasp open so I can make sure it's lined up. And so there's one done. And there's my second, which I think is done, but I'm not 100% sure if it's lined up properly. So I'll just wait until it cools down a little bit and then I'll clean it up. There's nothing really overly sensitive here, so I don't need to wait too long. I think this might be slightly misaligned. Yep. There we go. Just a little bit more heat in the board and it's just jumped itself into place, which is good. That means it's properly aligned. Excellent. I'm happy with that. Right, so I'm just going to have a little bit of a clean up here. Just get rid of those bad components. And also I'll get rid of the IPA and flux off the table. And also off my hands as well, because it's absolutely disgusting. Hate flux on my hands. I hate anything on my hands, to be honest. I mean, I like to keep my hands really clean. I mean, I get a few nicotine stains, I'm a smoker, but other than that, I like to keep my hands really clean. I can't stand when I've got stuff on there, you know, on my hands. Honestly, it's going to sound really weird, but it makes me feel like I want to pull my skin off. I know that sounds really stupid, but that's just the way it makes me feel. It's kind of like an OCD. I just get incredibly frustrated when I can feel that I've got something on my skin. I don't know, it's just weird. But honestly, I must wash my hands at least 20 times a day because of that. Oh, and then as soon as I clean my hands, I touch a sticky freaking adhesive strip. That's annoying. Right. Don't worry about that shield for now. I'll replace that shield before I actually finish. Same as that one. Not bothered about the shields. Couldn't care less about those. The only thing I care about right now is seeing if this is working. But I do need to clean up these connectors before I can do anything. Or rather the ribbons themselves. So to clean up the ribbons, again, I'm going to need to warm things up. So you can actually see the flux on the connectors, which is not good. Sorry, I'll say connectors, I mean ribbons. Now, the one thing I don't want to do here is get isopropyl alcohol inside the housing. You know, underneath this part of the housing here, because that's where the screen is. We could cause liquid damage to the screen itself, which is why I'm not pouring IPA on it. I'm just cleaning it with a brush. There's only so much I can do without having to replace the ribbons. That's obviously going to cost money though, so I don't want to do that if I can help it. These ones are not so bad because, you know, I've got a speaker which I can use to protect the screen, sort of. Yeah, can you see that flux on there? Right, hopefully that'll do it. So just time to get this assembled enough to give it a test, and hopefully we're good to go. I really hope that LCD connector's not damaged. I think it is. He thinks it is. I am struggling to get light here because, well, I haven't got my ring light. It's broken. I think that's broken. Just there, we've got a pin which appears out of place. That LCD connector is going to have to be replaced. Yeah, you can actually see it there as well, look, where the pins are damaged. Oh, that's annoying. I'm going to drop my temperature down because this is a really sensitive part of the board where it kind of it popcorns a lot unexpectedly, and I want to reduce that risk. It's not a very strong part of the board. Get that removed as quickly as I possibly can. Don't want to subject it to any more heat than absolutely necessary. Like I said, it's a really sensitive part of the board which seems to popcorn a lot more than the rest of the board. So I want to use as little heat as possible. Just tin that area. Alright, so I'm at 400 degrees Celsius here. And there we go. That should be good enough. Pins all seem to be connected and lined up. It is maybe a millimetre out, but honestly that's not going to hurt anything. And I'm not going to worry about that when there's a chance it could damage the board just to rectify it. You know, I'm not going to worry about it being a millimetre out. It's still going to connect fine. It's still going to work. I need to warm it back up again. Just got to make sure I get all of the flux out of the connector. So you can see the flux bubbling inside there. That means it's not clean enough, and we would have connection issues on the LCD. So if the connector's not moving freely, like it is now, but it wasn't before. If the connector's not moving freely, just with the bristle brush, the bristles on the brush, then it's not good enough. It's not clean enough. And you need to try again. Okay, there we go. Beautiful. Let's just get rid of that IPA again. And now hopefully this is going to actually connect. Or rather it's actually going to plug in, should I say. Not connect. That's better. Now it's plugging in. I can't believe how badly someone's destroyed this. So the true test is, do all of my ribbon cables go in properly? Those three seem fine. Okay, this connector's been, or this ribbon's been bent out of shape a little bit, which is annoying. It does go into my new connector absolutely fine though. Okay, so honestly everything seems okay in terms of going into the connectors, which is good. Last one. I always leave this one to last because it's annoying. Okay, that's got it. Okay, moment of truth. Okay, it's not actually turning on. Wow. It's not powering on at all. Oh, that's annoying. Alright, let me grab my tester. We are getting 15 volts at 0.14 amps, but with no backlight. This could be in RCM mode. So let's plug it into the computer and see if anything happens. Yeah, it's in RCM mode. That means that possibly the NAND isn't working. Or it's not receiving power to the NAND. Yeah, so if you look here, it says RCM device detected. If I inject a payload into that, it's... Wait, what? Ah, I don't have the payload. Right, okay, so this isn't an exploitable board. It's not injecting a payload. I just realised I wasn't actually on the overhead cam. Never mind. So, why then is this going into RCM mode? That's not good. And I don't think this is worth continuing. So, the problem here is the fact that this isn't an exploitable board. I know that the notes said that it was a failed mod attempt. I do realise that it should be an exploitable board, but it's not. It's a HIC CPU 10, which are normally exploitable, but only some of them. Right, so according to the serial number that's on the bottom of the switch, this is unpatched. So the fact that this isn't accepting a payload, and the fact that it's booting into RCM mode, I don't think it's going to be worth actually continuing. I will just try, as a last resort, I will just try cleaning this connector and this connector out. Just to make sure. Right, so I should have enough charge in it just to at least press the power button now. So yeah, it's not picking up. That sucks. Straight to 0.47 amps. Yeah, the fact that this is going into RCM mode, it tells me something else has happened to this. Honestly, it could be something to do with this max IC here, but I just don't think it's worth continuing with this because, well, I mean, they're not really worth that much these days. People are switching to OLEDs and things like that, and it would be cheaper to just buy a new board. So I think it's time to call quits on this one. Unfortunately, I will still post this video because, you know, it's interesting to see. Not everything is fixable. Not everything is a fix. It's not always successful. It's not all rainbows, peaches and cream. So, yeah, thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you do have any comments or questions, leave them down in the comment section down below. If you do want to organise a repair, get in touch, consolefix.shop. You can book in the repair and you can send it over and I'll do my best to repair it for you. Obviously, this is going to be invoking a repair attempt fee because of how bad it was. So, you know, this will incur a £30 repair attempt fee. Unfortunately, that is part of my terms and conditions. You know, it's one of those things. I can't fix them all at the end of the day. I've done my best with it. And, yeah, sadly on this occasion, it just didn't work. Never mind. Right, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now.